Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Amanda Barr, and I'm so excited you joined us here today. We've got an incredible shifter. She's not only beautiful from the inside out, but she is making a big change in this world. I have founder and CEO, LeiLani Quiary. She has a fiery passion for both human resources and philanthropy. And with 20 years of HR practitioning and philanthropic work, she's desired to build a business that was different from your everyday HR consulting firm. And be the change, that's the firm. Welcome to the show, LeiLani.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to dive in, hear more about your story, and obviously share it with our audience. So please tell us a little bit of the backstory and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, just a story. Where do I start?
I
Okay.
know.
So I'll start on the very beginning of how I even ended up in human resources. In high school, I was asked to do payroll and accounting for a construction company. And I didn't necessarily want to work in fast food. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So at the young age of 16, I was already processing payroll. And by the time, I got to 19 and in college, I was processing multi-state payroll in a union environment on that old system called Kronos. So any of you payroll professionals out there know exactly what I'm talking about, with the black screen and the green font and tabbing through everything. That's sort of where I got my serious chops with payroll, and then just started to climb the ladder and working in human resources. I feel like I did two things. I did three things. I'll talk about the third in a second. I climbed the ladder in HR, had a very strong background in payroll. And then I also had always had this entrepreneurial sort of mindset. And so by the time I was 25, I tried to start my first HR consulting firm. So those are the two things. Like, okay, I'm climbing the corporate ladder. I weave in and out of doing my own businesses. And then the third part, which is really the anchor of how and why I formed this org today, is I went through a really hard time. I always tell people I'm going to spare you the gory details, but I hit rock bottom a handful of times. And when I was coming out of that, I told myself, I said, I'm going to help other women in similar situations find their footing and really support them. And so the way that I did that was back in 2008. I started working as a volunteer with Working Wardrobes. And what Working Wardrobes does is help people with job readiness skills. So I became one of their success coaches. I would help people on the path of getting healthy, gainful employment. And I did that for years and years. So this three-prong path of, getting me to where I'm at today, an HR career, being an entrepreneur, whether I had the side job. I mean, my bosses knew about it, but I would do HR project work on the side. I started 2 businesses before I was 30. Neither of them were successful, but there goes always the story of entrepreneurs. And I was also doing a ton of volunteer work because I wanted people to know, mainly women, that, this can be done. It just takes a lot of hard work to get yourself out of a bad situation into one where you can financially support yourself. And so as I climbed this ladder and was living these principles, some years ago, I had a bad year. I always say it's not my worst year, but it was one of those years where everything started pointing towards, why are you working for other people? Why don't you just do your idea of doing HR and philanthropy and just run with it? And so I had this epiphany that year. So it was literally the year. It started bad in January, right? By April, I had a health issue. I had to have surgery. May, I had another health issue. I walked out on a job, I've never done that before, but I was like, I've had it. I can't, do this anymore. And so in the sabbatical that I had taken, I had this epiphany right after I was mourning my grandfather who passed. Do the thing. What are you doing? Do not go get another regular job. Figure this thing out. And so that was the day that I came up with the name Be the Change HR. I'm going to do human resources. And I remember very clearly because I was coming back on a plane, and right before the plane touched down in Long Beach Airport, it just clicked. So I named it Be the Change HR. I got it's a wonderful quote, but truth be told, I have the quote tattooed on my back. And I have to be clear that I don't have Be the Change HR tattooed on my back. It's the quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. So I was like, I'm just going to call it that. And, we're about to celebrate our 4th year, headed into our 5th year I got a team of 10 amazing individuals, a few more coming on board in the coming months. And what we do is we do human resources consulting for small mid-market businesses. And on the other side, we provide free job readiness classes and coaching to individuals who've been trafficked, homeless, and veterans in transition. And how we do that is we team with the nonprofits that serve those communities that want to also help them get healthy, gainful employment. And so that is the story of, how I got to where I'm at today and of the evolution of this business.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I mean, it really just shows that sometimes, the show's all about shifting, and you had life things happen, you had business things happening, things were coming together. And I think a lot of people are always looking for, like, what am I supposed to do in this world? What is my purpose? And it sounds so clear that you are right where you're supposed to be, with the team you're supposed to be working with, and these amazing companies that are benefiting from you just being the change. So maybe share a little bit. I know you shared about what you do, but when it comes to like the day in and day out, I think there's a lot of confusion around, well, what is HR? You make HR sound like it's amazing and fun, but really, what does that really look like?
There's like a couple things that human resources is, and a lot of times, especially my whole career, it's like, so you do recruiting. And recruiting honestly is one section of it. And to be even more honest, it is better left and specialized to the recruiters who that's what they do, whether it's a business that you hire to recruit for you or recruiters in an organization. But that's one subsect of what human resources does. But I like to say it a little bit differently. Human resources does two things: compliance and strategy. Right? Compliance is what we're used to asking HR professionals about, your HR friends. Hey, I didn't get paid on time. Like, what's my recourse? Or I think I'm being harassed at work. Like, what do I do? Or do I go get a lawyer? And those are the legal aspects. You're getting paid properly by the law, that companies are following proper leave laws, that companies are following harassment and discrimination guidelines according to protected characteristics. That's all the legal piece. And that comes by way of laws that are passed and case law. So there's different reasons why our HR professionals will say you can and cannot do things, and say there's all this gray area. That's the compliance side. And then the other side is the strategic side. And that, in my opinion, that's the fun side, right? That's the fun side of human resources. And that is overall, I would say, how do we create a great experience for employees? How do we create happy and healthy workforces? And that drops into lots of buckets, like how do we, do employee branding when someone comes on, employer branding when someone comes on board. What does the company look like? What does it feel like? What is the interview process like? So that the day that they hit your front door, your virtual front door, they know about your company, they get a sense for the culture already. And that's part of, the employee experience too. How do we manage performance? How do we, again, make happy workplaces? We're talking about culture management, and that's just strategic side of it. And then there's all the nuances in between by best practices and metrics and all that fun stuff behind it. But really, like I said, really what it is, even with the compliance side, is how do we create a happy, healthy workforce where people, we spend so much time at work. It should not be a horrible experience, right? It shouldn't, in my opinion, even be mediocre. It should be a good experience. And when you create that for people, there really will be, of course, engaged. They'll love what they do. They'll do great work. And at the end of the day, it does transfer into profitability, but that should never be the focus. It should be, how can I create a great experience for my people who are working for me?
Yeah. And you already, I remember when we spoke, you gave some ideas, or you were just doing it with your own team. You're like, yeah, I have open work hours. We just turn on the music and everybody's working and I'm here for them. And I just think that those little things, they can go such a far ways, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. You just are being connected.
Yeah, you're right. So we, and it's like, fine tuning and adjusting the things that you're doing. So we're a completely virtual team, and in the, I would say, the whisperings of my org, but we don't whisper, we just tell. We're out, we out loud tell each other. And I believe like the team is comfortable enough to do that. So I was realizing that I was not available to them. And so that is why, with the busy schedule of us entrepreneurs, you're networking, you're doing this, you're doing that, and strategic work. And so I was like, let me make some open office hours. Our project manager, Angel, has suggested that. And so it's a block of time where people can come ask questions, just like if you were in office, pop in, ask questions, we can work together, turn on music. And the reason I'm bringing up, you got to fine tune is because that has become the time where people come in and ask questions and work on projects. So me as a leader, I'm like, I got to get us back to having it be an open time where there is some fun involved, which is one of our core values, and make sure that I have more time on my schedule so that they can insert themselves in my regular work week. So it's always as a leader, it's always, trying to figure out what's going to work best for them and then paying attention. And I've been doing that. I'm like, okay, everybody's coming asking work questions only, must, reevaluate and figure out how I can be more available outside of those hours too.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, obviously they might be asking you, and a lot of things are happening because a lot has happened in the last few years. So yes. tell us, like, if for the business owners that are listening, what things should they know about? What changes should they be looking for? And if they're not working with an HR team, how could this really be potentially hurting them?
There's some big things that will always happen in a business that we usually see on the compliance side. And that is, am I properly classifying my workers? I've got someone who's 1099. Should they be an employee? Should they not? My quick answer to everyone out there is if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, then it's a duck. So if you have someone who's doing a job that normally an employee would do, probably an employee. But there are classification issues like that. There is, should I pay somebody's salary or not? And there are certain tests and guidelines. One of them's very clear. You have to make a certain amount per year, a salary, to pass the first test. Otherwise, you need to be hourly. Also, across the United States, that's constantly changing is leave laws. Those are unpaid leave laws and paid leave laws. So those are the paid sick leaves. This past year, we've got familiar with emergency paid sick leave due to COVID. And so it's just important to put yourself on some type of notification list. You're more than welcome to be part of our newsletter. We're not that annoying, or any other HR firm that does that for you, so you keep updated. And then the other part that I'm hearing a ton about, and this is just in the news all over the place, is how do we return to work? If you had an in-office space and you don't need people in the workplace, like if you're making widgets, yes, of course, you have to have human hands that do that, at least for now. The robots haven't taken over. And so, but the office environment, that is a huge question we're getting. How do I get my people to come back? Do they need to come back? What if they don't want to come back? So we're doing some work with our clients behind, having anonymous surveys, asking how people are thinking and feeling, not only about returning to work, but the vaccination question, and then helping them build a communication plan to bring them back safely or not, or hybrid, which is a big deal right now. I shared a statistic on LinkedIn in a video where I'm in my pajamas and I'm talking about 20% of the workforce is going to look to change in the next year, more than anyone has moved from job to job in the last 2 decades. This is a big jump. So as the economy gets back to normal, we no longer have this attitude of, well, you need this job, you're not going to leave. People will be moving and leaving. So back to the original, like what HR does, creating a happy, healthy workforce will ensure that your people do stay.
Awesome. Those are great tips. And I think everybody should just sign up for your newsletter, because when it comes to knowing what this stuff is and really keeping up to it, I mean, unless you're in that world, I mean, I couldn't tell you all the rules that are happening. So I would suggest anybody listening, sign up for her newsletter, get in the loop of what is going on and what you can do. Now, I know that I want to dive into something a little bit fun. You have taken a trip, quite the trip of 2021, and you have incorporated your business into this and traveling the United States. Can you tell us a little bit about the shift you took in your business and how it's unfolding? Because we're now halfway through the year.
2 big shifts. One, we all experienced last March, where the world shut down and we all went mostly virtual. And at that time, my team was fully virtual. I was the only one that was running around doing networking and client meetings and all that. And so I went virtual as well. At the same time, my son graduated high school. And for the first time in my adult life, I had the ability to uproot and kind of go anywhere. I'm a huge adventurer. Like if it's the weekend, you will find me hanging off of a cliff somewhere, climbing a mountain, doing something outdoors and a little extreme. And so in the summer, I took a mini trip to see, can I work fully virtual? Because I'd never done that before, like many of us out there. And then sort of figure out, am I going to do this for a longer period of time? So I went from Palm Springs to Chicago and back in a matter of 3 months. And then when I came back, I decided I'm going to sell all my stuff and I'm going to do this all of 2021. So I left Christmas Day. I packed up my very small Mazda Miata and I started driving east. I hugged the South as long as I could, because if you know what a Miata looks like, it does not belong in any type of weather or snow. And then once I hit the East Coast, made my way north. I'm currently in Fishkill, New York. By Friday, I will be in Chicago. And then I'm going to, just a huge loop on the top side of the country. I'm going to spend extended time in Glacier National Park and the Grand Tetons and in Washington State, because I'm obsessed with mountains. So I'm going to be roaming around there. But yeah, that's the trip I've been on. It's been amazing. I tend to move from Airbnb to Airbnb every week. And I've climbed some of the tallest mountains on the East Coast. I love, one big plug for Airbnb experiences, whether you travel or not, they have the coolest things to do, even in your hometown. So I've done like beekeeping in Georgia, a llama photo shoot last week in upstate New York, like all kinds of fun, crazy stuff. I went surf fishing. I'd never done that before. And it's a fun thing to do, whether you're actually on vacation or if you're local, to surprise your family or your loved one with a fun thing to do. That's not that expensive.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you think about, we only have so much time on this world, and a lot of us live in the mode of, I'm going to, when I get this, I will go and do this. And I think you're just living it. You are being the change. You are just saying, I choose and I'm going to go do, and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to work hard and it's going to be great. And it's all I'm going to make it all work. And it's so inspirational. I just want you to know that, like, if anybody's listening, go back and listen to her life. It's so fun. Like everything that you're sharing, I'm thinking, yeah, why aren't we doing this? Why am I not doing this? I know probably somebody watching is going, why am I not going and taking those trips and doing those things, even if it's just a little thing locally? So, that's a big shift. And how do you, when it comes to moving a lot, some people might say, well, that sounds glorious, but what does it really look like? How do you keep in a routine?
Yeah. So, I'm a mountaineer. I also backpack, right? And not like across Europe, like you put everything on your back and you figure out what you need to take. And one of the biggest things is deciding, what I'm going to take. And I have more gear than I do clothing and toiletries. So I have a golf bag. I have 3 backpacks, one for hiking, one for backpacking, and one for rock climbing. They're all in my front seat. I have very little, I have one, I love to cook and I wanted to bring all this stuff with me, but I only have a shaker for like protein shakes. Otherwise I just rely on what I have at the Airbnb. And that's been super interesting. And the other thing, this is such a timely interview that has happened to me in the last month, is I was getting really nauseous and anxious about a day before I would leave. I didn't notice that. I didn't draw the conclusion for a couple of times. I was like, why am I feeling like this? I'm eating healthy, and I drink a ton of water, and like I exercise. I'm a healthy person. And then it finally dawned on me. My body is like, like I feel like an endurance athlete, but traveling. My body's finally like sort of plateau. It's like, hey, I can't do this anymore. You need to slow down. And so I have been in New York a little bit longer than I had planned. And then the last part of my trip, I am staying longer. So instead of every week, 2 weeks, instead of staying in the city, I'm choosing places more in nature to quell like what's going on internally. Because every week I pack up, I drive 5, 6, 12 hours. I get to a new place. and then I settle in. And the settle in is the groceries in the fridge. I go shopping right before I arrive, and groceries in the fridge, get all my stuff ready for the week. And then I hit the ground running on Monday morning, and I work my butt off Monday through Thursday with a lighter day on Friday, which is funny because a lot of people will say, are you on vacation? Are you working? I'm like, well, this is a lifestyle change. I'm what they call a nomad CEO. I am home based less. I don't have a home necessarily to go back to in California. I don't have a home to go back to in California. But the biggest thing about how this is I'm paying attention to my routine, paying attention to the things I'm doing when I'm not working, and even paying attention to my work schedule and not overdo it. Because what I'm doing, now that I'm realizing it, is emotionally stressful to move from home to home. I don't know how much people believe in like energy, but every house has a different energy, and I have to fill it with mine, and that requires work too. And sometimes it's just as simple as lighting a candle and settling in. And other times it's like, oh, this space is a bit, like it's a bit heavy. Like, what else can I do in order to make it mine for the week? And then, but I'm doing it every week. So I think that's why my body was like, hey, slow down, please. I'm getting tired.
Oh, you brought up so many great things that I think that sometimes we just are in the mode of doing things and we don't really, we're not aware of it, and energy and those different things, and what is a space and moving so much. But I think you hit it right on the nail, is being flexible, listening to your body. Our body will tell us usually what's happening if we've got too much stress, or we'll be tired, or things won't be working, we won't feel optimal, and then you've got to do something. And it's being keen to say, okay, let's try it, let's do this, let's do that, until you figure it. But I love that you were able to still maintain that workload, because I think that's why people don't travel as much, is because they don't think they can keep up with the workload. But you've been able to master them both, and hats off to you. I know we've got to wrap up this show, but I'd love to get a little bit of extra, if there's one tip, or maybe it's something you could share with somebody that they could just think about or apply to their business, something that could help shift their business forward. What would that be?
Oh, one thing that I like to practice, and I feel like it's very much on my mind these days, and practice it with not just in my personal life, but professional life, is being as vulnerable as possible. And that could be small shifts as a leader where you make a mistake, and trust me, it's hard to own up to some stuff, right? Especially when you're leading a team, or even if it's just you in your own business, but creating the space to say, like, I'm human, it is okay. And so I think giving, again, permission to be vulnerable, permission to be human. We are working our butts off. And all of us are doing amazing things in our businesses, but it takes a toll. And so, with that vulnerability, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to reach out and literally tell people, I'm overloaded. Do you mind if we move this meeting? I'd like to take a day for myself. 99% of the people out there are going to totally support you, and then screw the other 1% that's just going to be like, wow, how could she do that to me? How could he do that to me? So I think it's something great to practice. And when you can do that with yourself and with your team, you will get it back. And what you get back is, people trust you. You get their vulnerability, and you get an opportunity to really have a deeper relationship, even in the workforce, with your people.
Awesome. Incredible. Thank you for sharing that. Before we wrap up, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, Leilani? If they want to, work with you, find out more, you're doing a great, nonprofits maybe want to partner with you. There's so many things you've been up to. How do they get in touch with you?
You are more than welcome to email me directly to me. So Leilani, I'm going to spell it for you. LeiLani at bethechangehr.org, or info@bethechangehr.org. Just tell them you want to speak to me, and an angel will forward that. Any of the socials @BeTheChangeHR. We are on every single platform. And I have a personal invite if you want to follow me personally on Instagram, Leilani_Grams, and you can see the rest of my journey.
Amazing. Connect with Leilani, support her journey, be a part of it, get signed up for her newsletter. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your insights. And it's been amazing. I felt like I went on the journey with you just a little bit around the United States this year. Awesome. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for all those listening today, we're going to get out of here and keep on the move.